The heat shimmered off the pavement, warping the horizon like a fever dream. The road was deserted, silent except for the ticking of an overheated engine. Thomas Weber stepped out of his Maserati, cursing under his breath. The car, his pride and joy, a symbol of his success, had chosen the worst possible moment to break down. He yanked open the hood and recoiled as steam billowed into his face, burning his eyes and fogging his designer sunglasses. It was 11:43. In just over 15 minutes, he was expected to unveil a project that could redefine the future of his tech empire. The investors would be waiting, their schedules as tightly wound as his nerves. He slammed the hood in frustration, pulled at the collar of his silk shirt, and glared at his phone. No bars. Not even a single dot of signal. He muttered an expletive, pacing in the unforgiving sun, sweat pooling at the base of his spine. A faint rumble broke the silence. An old pickup truck, battered and coated in dust, slowed to a stop beside him. Thomas straightened slightly, unsure whether to feel hopeful or wary. The woman who climbed out wasn't what he expected. Dressed in worn jeans and a plaid shirt, she walked with the calm of someone who knew what they were doing. Her hair was tied up, face glistening with sweat, her expression unreadable. "Car trouble?" she asked, casually surveying the situation. Thomas looked her over. "Yeah, I have a major meeting in 15 minutes. My assistant was supposed to arrange backup, but this place might as well be off the grid." The woman didn't flinch. Waiting for permission, she approached the Maserati and leaned over the engine. Thomas opened his mouth to protest, then closed it again. Something about her demeanor, efficient, unbothered, left little room for argument. "It's your cooling system," she said after a moment. "I can patch it up so you can at least get to the city. Temporary fix, though. It won't last more than a few hours." He frowned, glancing at her stained hands. "You're sure?" "I own a shop about 10 miles from here," she replied, not bothering to meet his gaze. "Name's Maya." Before he could respond, she walked back to her truck and returned with a toolkit. Her movements were precise, focused, and confident. Thomas watched, a mixture of disbelief and grudging respect growing in his chest. Her hands moved quickly through the tangle of wires and pipes, as if she had built the car herself. "You were minutes away from frying the whole engine," she commented, not looking up. "Machines like this are sensitive, even when they pretend to be invincible." "Remind you of anyone?" Thomas almost smiled. Almost. He studied her more closely now. There was something about her, something in the way she carried herself. He found himself curious, despite the pressure of the ticking clock.
"How'd you get so good at this?"
"I wouldn't expect someone out here to know this much about a car like mine." She didn't pause. "Excellence doesn't need a city skyline. I learn. I read. I've got grease under my nails. Not a title on my door. But I know my work." Thomas was taken aback, not just by her tone, but by the quiet authority it carried. She finished the repair, shut the hood, and dusted off her hands. "That'll get you moving. But don't push it." He sighed in relief. "Thank you. I owe you." He reached into his wallet and pulled out several bills. "Please, take this." Maya reached out to accept the money, and that's when he saw it. A flash of silver on her finger. A ring, aged and elegant, with a pale sapphire set in the center. Time seemed to slow. He stared at it, the rest of the world fading out. "Did you get that ring?" he asked quietly, his voice strange, even to his own ears. Maya hesitated, then instinctively curled her fingers over the stone. "It was my mother's," she said, guarded now. "Why?" But Thomas already knew. The memory crashed into him like a wave. 2 kids sitting beneath a tree. Laughter. A promise whispered on a summer day. And a ring, a small, delicate thing he had pressed into her hand before leaving, with all the naive certainty of a boy who believed in forever. He looked at her face again, searching. "It can't be." but Maya stepped back. Her expression hardened. If your car gives out again, my shop is the first turn past the Aurora City sign. 10 miles, she said, turning toward her truck. You should get going. Wouldn't want to keep your investors waiting. He hesitated, torn between the meeting and this surreal revelation. That ring, she didn't look at him. Drive, Mr. Weber. You've got somewhere to be. The Maserati pulled away, the engine coughing slightly before smoothing out. Maya watched him go, her thumb absently brushing the surface of the ring. He didn't recognize me, she said softly. Just like back then. He didn't see me. At 2. Her workshop, Maya channeled her emotions into work, dismantling an engine with more force than necessary. Her uncle Xavier, tall and grizzled, watched from the doorway. You're going to strip those bolts, he said gently. She didn't stop. Guess who showed up with a busted luxury car? Xavier frowned. No. Yep. Thomas Weber. Like something out of a twisted joke. He stepped closer, concerned. Did he know it was you? Maya scoffed. He saw the ring. Recognized that, not me. 20 years later, and he still doesn't see the girl he left behind. That night, Maya opened the old box beneath her bed. Inside were carefully folded newspaper clippings, each one charting the rise of Thomas Weber. Photos, headlines, articles on his achievements, his company's innovations, his recent engagement to Elise Harrington, daughter of a fashion mogul. She studied one picture longer than the rest. His smile hadn't changed. Tomorrow, he won't even remember the ring, she murmured to the quiet room. But she was wrong. The next morning, just as the sun began to warm the ground, a modest sedan pulled into the gravel driveway outside the shop. The engine turned off, the door opened, and Thomas stepped out. He wasn't wearing the designer suits anymore, just a plain jacket, eyes hidden under the brim of a baseball cap, like he hoped no one would recognize him. But Maya did. The bell above the shop door jingled, and she looked up from the counter. "We're open," she called, her voice careful, distant. "I'm not here for repairs," he said quietly, holding out something in his palm. A small wooden bird, its wings spread as if frozen mid-flight. The moment her eyes landed on it, Maya's breath caught. That carving. The very first sculpture she had ever made, handed to a boy with trembling hands and bruises on his pride, just before she left the orphanage. You kept it," she whispered before she could stop herself. He nodded slowly. "Open Heart Orphanage, West Wing. You were the only one who didn't laugh when I tried to carve something. You showed me how to hold the knife without cutting myself. You promised you'd come back," she said. There was no accusation in her tone, only memory. "I tried," he said, and something unspoken darkened his eyes. But my father had other plans. From the back room, Xavier stepped out, wiping his hands on an oil-stained rag. He studied the man standing across from Maya with a kind of slow, deliberate suspicion. "So," he said, "the prince returns." 2 decades later, Thomas met his gaze evenly. "I deserve that. I just need a chance to talk." Xavier didn't answer, but his silence was its own kind of permission. "He took me in when I had nowhere to go," Maya said, glancing at Xavier. "Taught me everything I know." "That was supposed to be me," Thomas said, regret clear in every syllable. "I swore I'd take care of you when we were kids, but I let you down." "Why now?" Maya asked. "Why after all this time?" Thomas hesitated. "In 3 weeks, I'm expected to stand beside a woman I don't love and accept a position at a company I've grown to despise. And then I saw you, well, I saw the ring first. Something in me just broke open." His phone buzzed again. The name Elise lit up the screen. 6th call. Maya raised an eyebrow. "She doesn't give up easily," she said. "My fiancé," he said bitterly. It's not a relationship. It's a merger with a diamond ring. Maya folded her arms. So you want what? Forgiveness? I want the truth, he said. And maybe a chance to fix what I should have never let go. What? He didn't say, what he couldn't, was that he'd started digging the moment he saw Maya again. That he'd unearthed files that had long been buried, documents scrubbed from every official record about a property once owned by the Oliveira family. What Maya hadn't told him was that in the back of her workshop, hidden beneath loose floorboards, was a collection of papers she'd kept for years. Pages with faded ink, bearing the Weber Enterprises logo and the unmistakable signature of Thomas's father. They proved what she always suspected. The land they once called home was taken through fraud. The same land now paved over with concrete, gleaming with glass, and bearing the Weber name. 3 days passed. Thomas cancelled meetings, ignored calls, and buried himself in his father's archives. The official story didn't add up. Then, hidden behind legal binders in the old study, he found it. A locked folder labeled Aurora Initiative. Inside were contracts, court records, and a forged death certificate. She was alive, he muttered. They faked her death. Miles away, Maya made her choice. She took the hidden file and laid it before Xavier. I need to confront him, she said. It's dangerous, he warned. They destroyed your family once. They can do it again. I've got nothing left to lose, she replied. That night, Thomas received a message with a location and a time. Come alone. He arrived at the town square under dim streetlights, where Maya sat waiting beneath a tree. For years, I believed my mother walked away from me, she said. But she didn't. She tried to fight back, and he stopped her. Thomas's jaw tightened. Your mother. She never died, he said, confirming what she already knew. She handed him the file. He threatened her life. He told her she'd never see me again if she didn't give up the land. Thomas's hands shook as he turned the pages. This signature, he said, matches the ones you just found, doesn't it? She said. Xavier had the papers. He waited until I was old enough to understand. She pulled out an old photo. A woman with Maya's eyes and a soft smile. The same ring now on Maya's finger glinted on the woman's hand. Her name was Amelia, Maya said. And she didn't leave me. She was forced to disappear. I'm going to help you expose him, Thomas said. Let's do it tonight. He moved the ceremony earlier, trying to avoid leaks. I'll get you on stage. What Maya didn't know yet was that Thomas had found more. Documents proving her mother hadn't died, hadn't vanished. She'd been hidden, kept under watch on a private estate that bore the Weber crest. At the grand event, everything gleamed. Politicians shook hands with businessmen. Investors snapped photos beneath banners bearing Ernesto Weber's face. Thomas, Ernesto greeted, smiling for the cameras, until he saw Maya beside him. His eyes narrowed. What is she doing here? She has a story to tell, Thomas said coolly. And it begins with this land. Inside the private office, Ernesto dropped the mask. How much? He said to Maya. Name your price and disappear. I'm not here for money, Maya said, voice steady. I want my mother. Ernesto laughed. She probably doesn't even remember you. Thomas hit record on his phone. So she's alive. She's not a prisoner, Ernesto scoffed. She's lived comfortably in exchange for signing a few papers. That's not a deal, another voice said. Xavier stepped inside, followed by a woman with trembling hands and eyes full of unshed tears. Mom? Maya whispered. Amelia stepped forward, decades of silence cracking in her voice. Maya. They embraced. No words. Just the weight of years collapsing in a single moment. In the hallway, Elise, Thomas's fiancée, watched silently, her phone recording everything. Thomas turned to his father. Why? He asked. Why all this? For water, Ernesto said simply. This land holds the largest freshwater reserve in the region, worth billions, the future of our company. And that justified stealing a child from her mother. Thomas's voice was heavy with disgust. Ernesto's eyes gleamed coldly. Just like adopting an orphan to replace the son I lost, Thomas paled. What? You really think you ended up at that orphanage by chance? Ernesto sneered. My real son died with his mother. You were healthy, unclaimed, perfect. Elise stepped forward. That's not all, she said, holding an old file. You didn't just adopt Thomas. There were others. It was systemic. Hidden adoptions. Records. Destroyed. She looked at Thomas and Maya. Your half-siblings. The room froze. Maya and Thomas looked at each other, their matching eyes suddenly making sense. Amelia stepped forward. The ring, she murmured. It was a family heirloom. I gave it to Thomas the night they took him. Police sirens wailed outside. Ernesto stood, defiant. But he knew it was over. News spread fast. Headlines shouted the fall of the Weber dynasty. Fraud, kidnapping, forgery. The truth spilled into every corner of the city like water breaking through a dam. Thomas gave up the Weber name. He reclaimed the identity that had been taken from him, Amelia's son, not Ernesto's heir. The land, once stolen, was returned to its rightful family. Instead of office towers, an environmental sanctuary rose in its place, with a foundation for children who had been abandoned just like they were. 6 months later, Maya leaned over a car engine, grease on her fingers, while Thomas sat nearby reviewing documents. The workshop had doubled in size. A plaque outside read, Olivia Center for Hope. He wore the bird pendant now, the carving she'd made all those years ago. A reminder of where they came from, of what was taken and what was found.